We're gonna start by just making a new project. Same procedure as we've done a couple of times by now. Call it just green screen here. And okay, and then likewise, we just need to import all of the assets, of course, into the video here, or into the assets folder. And there we have it. Now we're not gonna make an entire movie out of this. There are some assets to we could actually make a short little story about an old man falling in his apartment, having a smart wrist-worn device, sending an alarm to a caretaker, helping him out. But we're gonna make the scenario here a bit shorter because we don't need to tell stories now. We talked about all of that yesterday. But we need to look at how to make video and green screen work in multiple conditions. So let's still, however, make a little story out of it. And we have a clip down here in the assets folder called Søren i stuen, Søren in his living room. And now I love this clip because this is my old PhD supervisor looking a bit goofy because I gave him a pillow under his shirt and had him sort of play an old man. So he body stomped being an old man, wanting to sit on this couchy thing in his living room. But then, of course, what happened was that he fell. Yeah, you can play a little around with this. I also made some GIFs actually of him. They're all over the university network by now. But this is essentially what we want. We want him walking in. You can see here we made a very improvised green screen, a lot like we are doing here. But you can see here that nasty shadow up there. And right now that shadow is such a dark shade of green that to actually remove this in a way where we won't affect anything else in the picture, we would essentially either need to really spend hours and hours and hours of tweaking multiple different color keys on top of it, or simply reshoot the entire thing if we use that. But we're going to try to see if we can fix something which will make it at least manageable to use this clip. So I think we're gonna use the clip up until the point where he's actually has fallen. So up until more or less here, I think. Up until here. So I'll make my mark out here. So now I've just selected the entire clip here with this old man going back and forth. And yeah, my voice is in that too. But we don't need the video. We only need the video here. We don't need the sound. So I'm just gonna drag on the film strip here and drag the clip down here into our timeline. It creates a timeline for us if you don't already have one. So now we have a clip with Søren walking into the living room and then sitting, and he's falling. And what we want to do here is that we're going to cut to a close-up of his arm so we can show what's actually is on this arm device when he when it turns on and registers that he has fallen. But let's first things first here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to crop this image because we can also see that the camera here wasn't positioned to actually have the green screen as the total of the picture, and you guys will probably see that too when we mount it up here. So that's the first thing. We need to use our cropping effect. And now we don't need to search to just find the crop here anymore. Now we can just search for it. We can just write crop because we know what crop can do. So we just write cropping here. And then we drag the crop effect on top of Søren. Just like we did yesterday with the Submotion video. And of course we go up into effects control. Whoa. Wait. Minutes. Go there. And effects control. And then we find our crop here. And then we just adjust. Say, okay, we only need more or less like that. More or less like this, something like that. Okay. So now I have a small video of Søren coming into his living room like this, and we at least don't have these sides anymore. Now we just have the green area to actually begin to edit. So that's the first thing. Now we want to try to figure out what should the background be. We can easier assess if our green screening has worked if we already have a background to put it towards. So what we're going to do now is we're going to drag the video clip with Søren. Just press and hold and drag it up in the video layer 2 because we're going to add something to video layer 1, a background. Just like we did yesterday. So we drag it up there. And then luckily I have a nice picture called Stue Baggrund, living room background. And you can see this looks like something that an old person like my supervisor, who's only 39 years old, this looks like something he would be living in. So let's drag that down to the timeline and extend it so that it takes up the entire space. So we drag it down, this JPEG file, and we use the red cursor to extend it. And when we have that, you can see now in the cropped area, we sort of have the entirety of the full screen here now. What we can do later on here is we can begin to reposition the things. We're going to go into that. So we're not going to adjust or crop the background of this living room right here, right now. What we are going to do instead is that we are now going to try to add some green screen effect. Again, just like we did yesterday. Now you don't have to do what I'm doing now. I'm just going to show you why we're not using the color key as we did yesterday. Say I'm going to go over here. So I'm just going to find the video effects and I find the keying effects. And if I just apply the color key, I might just do that. Apply it to Søren, go into the effects control of Søren, and then select one of these greenish colors. And begin to do as you guys did yesterday. We can begin to remove stuff here, but we can see rather quickly we begin to disintegrate that poor man. And this would be very, very fun to a company Christmas party or something like that to show these videos, but it might not be beneficial as a sketch. So here I would have to add multiple color keys, adding multiple effects and constantly saying, okay, now I need to tweak the color, which is more like this. Try to tweak that. And you can see we could, of course, achieve this. We could sit down here, begin to just, okay, and we just add one more, because now I need to remove the shadow, and then it becomes a pain in the ass, because the shadow, oh, he also has some of the shadow on his legs, so now his legs is off. So it becomes a bit tedious. We can do it, of course, but there is smarter and easier ways of doing this. Now, if I wanted to use this, a smart thing to do is to use some of the effects in the color keys that we didn't cover yesterday, and that's the one called feather. A feather is essentially, when we draw this, we ask it to blur the borders of what we have green screen, so we can sort of make it look not that rough, but have a bit of more like a blurry feel. And if we use this thing called an X thin, we actually ask it to sort of eat a little of the border also. So we can make something that I guess could work. It's not like it's awful, but we can see here Søren has already lost his face. So he's some kind of weird sci-fi monster right now. So we're not going to do this. We're instead going to delete these color keys now. Go back to where we started. Like that. Instead, we're going to try the Ultra key, as I briefly mentioned yesterday. Now, the Ultra key is a bit more aggressive, I would say. Because watch what happens at the same first moment that I now select a color here. It more or less did the entire job for us in one click, right? The Ultra key, you drag the Ultra key effect on top of the clip. Ultra key. It has to be pronounced Ultra key. Like Ultra Kill in the old Unreal Tournament games. Yeah, someone was knowing what I talked about. The fine thing about the Ultra Key is that you can see it applies just rapidly, but you can also see it did some things with good old Søren here. It did make his head. I can turn the effect on and off here by pressing the effects button. You can see we made him look a bit more like a pig because it became a bit pink. And we also happened to make his head a bit transparent, actually. His head is now a wee bit transparent. But on the other hand, we now only have very few artifacts in this picture. This actually could already now work for something that we could say this could be something that we would actually use. But of course, we have some different ways of tweaking the Ultra Key too. We can tweak multiple things like transparency, tweak things like that, okay, saying, okay, we need to adjust this a bit. But here we have to be careful not to make, because now we made him a ghost. So we can also make ghosts with this effect. So it is a constant struggle for finding a fidelity which we think we would like, and eliminating enough of the picture without actually destroying the stuff what we're doing here. But you can tweak back and forth. Again, you really can't destroy anything here. You can just apply the effect again, or control set it in order to, and we can soften the things a bit also, soften the borders here, the matte cleanup. You know, we have some things here we can cover it up a bit, maybe do a bit higher contrast, maybe something like that. So now we have Søren walking in. Okay, we can see here I still have made him a bit too transparent, maybe. So we do something like that. So we have this nice little pink boy coming in. We can tweak this, but again, the point of Ultra Key is that it isn't as nice as when we do color keying, because color keying is what we would do if we were professional. But on the other hand, this can be used to now say, now we have Søren with a transparent background. And actually you can see that his shadow, you can see it on your screen at least, his shadow is actually now also a wee bit transparent. So maybe it is not that big a problem that there is this shadow. We can maybe live with that right now. We could of course begin to try to remove the shadow too. But for now I actually think we're just gonna leave the shadow on here. What we created now is that we have made the possibility of beginning to move Søren a bit around here, because now the background is transparent. So if we go up in the top of the effects controls up here, up until the motion, we would actually now be able to reposition Søren. We could make him a bit smaller if we wanted that. We could make Søren smaller. Now we can see, of course, there is still this little square here, and we could spend some time actually making that go away. But since it's a sketch, this is okay. So maybe it's actually not the size which is wrong here. Maybe it's because that we want him to be positioned somewhere else in the living room. So now we just maybe adjust him a bit down here and adjust him over here. Maybe make him a bit larger again. Like something like this. Something like this. So now he has this kind of puff or place to sit. But now it looks like he's actually coming in from the side. Okay, there are still some things we could clean more up here. What did I just do? This happened for you guys also? Yeah, okay. Well, no worries. We just apply it all once more. Boink, 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 like that. Okay. So, and maybe I just add a bit of a higher transparency here to get this stuff a bit away. Like that. Some highlights here. Get them down. Okay. So we have Søren entering. And he's falling. And we can see we actually needed to crop a bit more, or I at least needed to do that over here in the side. So I just, again, since we can now sketch in this, we can just adjust this. So always remember that when you made something transparent through the green screen, we can just begin to move the things around just like it was another graphical object. this is now a video, but it is also a graphical object that I can just manipulate whatever way I want. And I could also animate it, and I could flip it around, and I could do multiple things if I wanted to here. And of course, we could begin to animate this too. So we have the possibility now of completely choosing where to position Søren. But I'm choosing that he's going to be positioned here, walking into his living room, sitting down, and falling. And when he falls here, we're going to add another clip called the arm device. We have a movie clip here called arm device, where we can see that Søren's hand is coming up into the air, and there is sort of this mock-up that I made of our wrist-worn device. So we're actually going to just drag the entire clip down. I don't know how much of it I'm going to use by now. So we can just drag it down here, like that. So we have a cut now doing something like this. Okay? And just for the sake of it, for maintaining aspect ratios and stuff like that, maybe we should try to make this border go away. So of course we could use a crop here, but we could also try to encompass the entirety of the clip by simply just selecting the arm device movie clip here, and then in the effects control, maybe just zooming a bit in and adjusting a bit down here. So now the cut won't change the aspect ratio because we just have a more higher zoom now. But we still get the idea, right? That, okay, his hand is up in the air. Okay. Now we need the living room again. But we need the living room in another instance because we're going to do the same trick as we did yesterday. Zooming in upon it and make it a bit blurry. So we won't cover that in too much detail. We just drag the background in here, extend it, and then we're actually ready to try out a new Ultra key again. Let's try to see. We could, of course, again, just as I showed you, we could apply multiple color keys, applied, and even here, we would rather fastly begin to disintegrate the arm. But of course, with close-ups like this, where the lighting is just perfect, we can reach something that is much more smooth. I don't need to have that many Ultra keys in order to make color keys in order to make this go away. But again, sticking to the Ultra key for the purpose of this demo, we just put in an Ultra key, use the pipette, and boom, it's gone. And again, we have these things we need to clean up if we want it to be just picture perfect. But again, we could do this all day, but we really don't need much more than just to be sure that this can actually work as sort of a sketching asset here. So now I have something that I'm okay, happy with this. But what I would like is that already here, I would like sort of an interface to pop onto the screen. And the problem that I have right now is that this is filmed with a camera. So if I put up a static piece of imagery here, I would need to constantly track the image and have it move around in accordance to this clip. So because it moves just a bit around. So what we're going to do here is that I'm going to do like we did yesterday. We're going to make a frame hold. So here I can use the razor tool down here to just cut the clip once more. And then maybe just make a short cut here. Okay, I want this little, now I have this small thing cut out here between. And then I just select and I delete the rest of it. And then I have this short clip that I just cut with the razor tool. And here I then add a frame hold. I just right click and find the add frame hold, click it, and then we are able to sort of drag this up here. And now before we do anything with the graphical overlay here, I think we should just really quickly adjust this background, because right now the background is the same. It doesn't look right. Instead I just do as we did yesterday. I select the background and I just begin to zoom in. Just begin to zoom in on it and try to say, okay, where could this background possibly be when Søren is actually in the living room here. So we can reposition it all that we want. Why doesn't this work? Just try it again. That. So we begin to reposition this and maybe get it a bit down here. And we can try to figure out where was his arm in the living room. So yeah, okay, it was more or less around here. So let's say that is that's good enough for us. Did I not make a frame hold on this one? I didn't. Just a second. Add frame hold. Okay, now we have a frame hold. Nice. Like that. So now we have sort of the living room being like this. And we could, of course, make a blur like we did yesterday, but we don't want to do that now. What we're going to do now is that we're going to animate a screen coming up here. And now we could do this in multiple ways, of course. But the easiest way right now in the sketching purpose is simply just to put it on top of our device. We don't want to remove this second shade of green in order to be able to move it backwards. So instead I just find the, we have something called arm device alarm here. Boing! Alarm. I have fallen. Jeg er faldet i stuen. So it's essentially telling that there is an alarm and where he has fallen in his living room. And we just drag this JPEG down on top of our video clip here. So now I have this nice big resolution thing ruining all my day. And one thing, of course, to do is that I could just select this thing that I've dragged down into the video layer 3 and just begin to scale it, right? I could try to scale it, and I guess I could try to rotate it to sort of fit the borders, but again, there is some perspective things which are not entirely fitting right now. It would be actually a challenge for me to make it fit completely precise. You can see if I turn it up right now, it really, I won't be able to do this completely. Of course, it could work but it's not entirely fine. So what I'm going to do instead is that we're going to apply another effect, and this is one of the important ones because this can really work wonders whenever we have to do something about perspective. There is an effect over here in the effects panel that if you begin to write corner pin, so if you just begin to write corner, it's under the distort effects. Then there is an effect called a corner pin. And the corner pin, if we just drag this one on top of our JPEG up here in video layer 3, what the corner pin does is that it makes us able to take any element, video and still pictures, and begin to adjust each individual frame of it. So you can see here if I press the square here on the corner pin, over here I get some handles that I can begin to now drag. And now I can drag them to actually fit the device that I was thinking about here. So we have something like this now. So we can begin to adjust the perspective. But we can also use this if we, if I had pressed the animation button, if I had toggled that this should be something we wanted to animate, I could also use this to animate like a genie in the bottle, person being suddenly down into something. So we can do multiple things with this stuff. And now the last thing we're going to do is basically we want this thing to sort of fade. So, you know, so it's not just coming this abrupt, like right now it's just going to be boink. So instead we're going to take here at the first frame of the arm device alarm, we're going to find our opacity in the effects control. Expanding opacity. And then we're going to tell Adobe Premiere here, this button, adding a keyframe, saying at this point in time, pressing it. At this point in time, the alarm device's opacity should be 0%. So it's completely transparent. And then, when we reach, let's say, just about a quarter into the clip, we want it to have been 100%. And then we essentially, now we made a small fade here. And if I think the fade was too fast, we can do as we did yesterday, just go up here in the effects control again and begin to drag the keyframes. So I can make it go a bit slower, like this, or I could make it go a lot faster, like this. So now we made some green screen of the living room, and we made some green screening effects of how to place an interface here. The last thing we then need to do before sending you guys off, and I'm going to try to mount the green screen, is to show you how to do this sort of behind the scenes. And we actually are going to tell a little story here now, because we have a small video clip here called Sanne med iPhone. And this is my good colleague Sanne, who sits here at her desk, and actually then suddenly something happens. And maybe this shouldn't be the one we want to use, because this is one where we directed her to actually begin to interact a lot. So let's instead use Sanne på kontor, Sanne in her office. Here we have a total of Sanne, so we can see Sanne is at least sitting a completely different place than Søren is. And yeah, okay, we want Sanne then to be standing here and seeing the alarm on her phone, and then pick it up. And then we're going to zoom into a close-up of her. So I'm going to make my mark out here as soon as she has picked up her phone. I'm going to drag this clip down here. And we're going to drag it, make sure that it's in at least video layer 2 or 3. Doesn't really matter which of those, but so we get something like this now. Now, what I didn't show you yesterday was that we can also make some graphical assets inside Premiere. We don't have to rely on things we download from the internet or stuff like that. So I'm just going to show you quickly how we could maybe showcase that Sanne's phone is actually doing something right now. We can do that by using the title up here, the same place where we made text items yesterday. So if we choose title and new title, and a default still, let's call this data. We can also drag in here different primitive shapes. If we just want to make sort of a beam or something like that, then I'll try to make the ellipse tool here. Make a circle. So I'm going to draw a circle now. It's just going to be a rather large circle. It's completely fine. But now I don't want the circle to just be like this. I want the circle to sort of have a border. And where do I get my border? The stroke. We're going to add a stroke to this. So we have stroke over here. So I'm going to press add an outer stroke to this one. And then I'm thinking that we choose a color of like something like red or something. Red. So I press the add stroke. And when the stroke is added, I choose, down here at the color, I choose the red color. But I don't want it to have this solid white in the middle, so I just deselect the fill up here. I can select that on and off here. So I've selected I don't have any fill color. So now I have this sort of beam. But what I would like to do is that I want to have maybe 3 or 4 of these to make sort of a beam we can animate to expand from Sanne's phone. So now with my circle, I can use the select tool up here to select my little circle, and then just right click, copy, and pasting a new one. And when I press paste, it actually just puts itself in front of the old one. So when I begin to make this smaller, the old one is still in the background. What I can do then is I can sort of begin to make sort of this beaming effect. Whoa. by dragging a circle here, maybe pasting a new one. So now I have pasted and made 3 of these circles, and maybe make this in here or something like that. So I have sort of these 3 circles. Simple graphical element, but we'll be using it to communicate what Sanne's phone is actually doing right now. So when I'm done, I can just close the title editor again. And now I have this data layer. And I can drag this down onto my Sanne clip. And now we're beginning to reuse the same things we did before. We're gonna change the position of this one. We want it to have a center point on top of the phone. I'm just gonna drag it, press here on the motion, and drag it on top of the phone. And then we're gonna scale it down a bit. Maybe it's all down to 100%. So saying at toggle animation, and say at this point in time, it should be 0. But then it should immediately, a few seconds after, I want it to have expanded. I want it to do something like this. And then a few seconds after that, I want it to zoom in again. And a few, whoa. Yes, 600%, that's what I like. Now it's going to expand again, something like that. So we now have sort of a like beam here, room. Oh yeah, it had to go down here. Had to go down again, something like that. And then a few seconds after, has to go up again, something like that. And it actually has to do that up until the point that in the video, Sanne sees the phone. So I'm just going to continue on doing this stuff. But you get the idea, right? That we can sort of animate this beaming feature here. Maybe we need to expand this also a bit. So somewhere over here, it beams again. And then just before Sanne actually is reaching for it, I might want to have it to have beamed itself down again. Brink. Like that. And then Sanne grabs the phone. And now I have this small animation of some... We could do this with all kinds of data or with some things you have made a mock-up of. But now we have something, alarm going off here. Doing, doing, attention, please, viewer. Whoop. Okay. So now if I just close this clip in then, saying, okay, or maybe just a wee bit more, like here. Whoa, my bad. So we have something like this now. Sanne picks up the phone. Sanne picks up the phone, and then the last image we're going to show here is we're simply just going to have Sanne sitting with an iPhone. And we have an image of this here, iPhone still. And we can see here I added a green screen to the iPhone. So if I drag this one down here, we can simply just have it cut to a close-up, a very close-up of the iPhone. But this is where we use the effect we covered on the first day of the workshop. Right-clicking on this one and scaling to frame size. Something like this. And then maybe, of course, we could scale it up a bit so we actually get it to cover the entire widescreen format here. So now we have a cut, which is something like this. Sanne picks up the phone, and even though there is no video here, we get the idea right. We can see that, okay, this is Sanne. She just picked it up with her left hand, and now this is the left hand holding a phone. But what we're going to show here is just to show you guys that you can, of course, use green screens to put traditional backgrounds, but we can also use it here to actually maybe just take the Ultra key, put it on top of our iPhone still here, remove the green color, like that. But now we actually have a completely transparent phone. So whatever we put down in video layer 1 now will only be seen through the scope of the iPhone here. So what we can do with that is also, if we wanted to simulate some augmented reality effects, we could do this. We could have that the only transparent part of this video is the iPhone. So whenever we remove the green screen, we see a new aspect of the background we put in here. So with Sanne's example here, I think we're just going to use this called tablet alarm. We can use that for an iPhone too. It's an alarm. It tells that Søren Balvi Oldpants, he's at home and he has fallen in his living room, but it also tells us that the pulse is okay. So it's not a critical thing. So we have some design ideas put into this product here. And then there maybe is a contact way, so she can actually contact him while she is going to his living room, saying, telling him that he should calm down, help us on the way, so he doesn't get afraid. What we're going to do now is that we're going to drag this actually down into the background. And you can see now that we have this, as I told you, right now, then Sanne's phone is sort of our, sort of our filter for this entire thing. So we can move it around and see, okay, it is in here, also a bit behind Sanne's arm because we use the Ultra key instead of the color key. And of course we can begin to scale it down. But again, here we can use the corner pin from the effects. So if we choose effects again, find our corner pins once more, and apply it to the tablet alarm. Then we can begin to make the exactly same thing, making it fit the perspective of this exact way of holding the this iPhone. So we can get something like that. Now where is my upper right corner? It's there. Okay. So I can begin to adjust this up until that I am happy with the perspective of this and saying, okay, now it actually looks something like an iPhone app in a perspective here. Like that. And of course we can animate it, we can do stuff like that. We can say, okay, from here we can again say the opacity should just be, the opacity should here be 0, and it should sort of fade in, so we actually get our attention directed. So it's like this, and then maybe only have it for a couple of seconds. And now we actually have told a little story. We could tell the story to the end, because even though I don't want you guys to spend too much time editing with me, but to edit for yourself, we also have a video here with good old Søren actually sitting here and being rescued by Sanne. So we could reverse our entire process, cropping this stuff, putting in the color keys, and then actually save Søren so he gets home and gets some help. Now you don't have to follow along here, but what I just wanted to show you is that now we need to remember what we did before. We have all the effects over here that we know works. So I could essentially just now copy the crop, copy the Ultra key, copy these two effects. Copy all of our effects here, select both of them, and just go over to this clip and paste them. And then even though we might do some small adjustments in order to not make Søren look like a zombie, we could also just drag the Stue background, press and hold the alternative button, and then sort of finding where it needs to be, and then have the exact same thing here. And maybe we actually also changed the motion here. We can also copy the way the entire clip was positioned by simply just putting it in. So now Søren is positioned the same place as before. And now Sanne runs into the picture. And we can see we have a problem here that she actually is cropped a bit too much then. So we need to maybe remove a bit of our crop again. But again, this was just to show you really fastly. Now we have actually made the video done. Are there any questions regarding the green screening here? You can see it's rather fast to do this, right? If I had to remove the shadow, Let's take it in the beginning of it, the clip here. Let's say I now removed my my Ultra key completely from this Søren in Stue clip. I removed the Ultra key. Then I would essentially have to use multiple different color keys. Because we can, of course, let's just start by taking the shadow as the object here. And then adjust the color tolerance like this. And then I need to scrub through my videos to see, are there any things who are affected by this? No, there wasn't, but there are still some shadows which are there. Apply a new color key. And say, okay, now we need this darker green, this little light green here. We need to remove that. But you can see really fastly we begin to actually remove stuff from the actors. So we need to finally adjust, add a new color key, adjust the next color, adjust it up until the point where we begin to remove things, add another color key. So it is a tedious process, especially when you're doing sketches. So at least for your first couple of sketches here, I really wouldn't recommend sitting doing this stuff. You have much better things to essentially do than tweaking this stuff in eternity, because you can see we will need a lot of color keys. And the thing is that every time I add a color key, I add a new set of mathematic things that Premiere has to essentially calculate when I render the movie. So every time I add one of these, I'm essentially telling Adobe to make a lot of more math when it has to render, and it will take a lot more time. But of course we can remove the things completely. If I wanted to spend the next 10 minutes adjusting this, using some feather and using some edge, then we could remove it completely, even though that this had a lot of bad lighting. So it is definitely possible. But this is only a thing you should do if you use green screen for your final video sketch and you have some time tomorrow afternoon and say, okay, now we really have time to polish this stuff. Then you can do it. But up until that moment, just use the Ultra key. Then you can always delete the Ultra key afterwards and begin to tweak the fidelity up. Okay? Yeah. Then it will be a bit, let's say, tedious. If we used Adobe After Effects, which has a bit more advanced animation features, we could make some automated tracking of the object. In Adobe Premiere, we will need to essentially, let's just make an example here. If I place the iPhone still here, and I wanted this object to follow Søren into the living room. So every time Søren moved, I wanted this object to essentially follow him. That could be if I wanted to keep him anonymized, as an example, right? Then I would essentially have to animate it with keyframes. So I would do something like saying, okay, at this point in time, I would tell that the position is there, but when it comes over here, I then say the position needs to change a bit, like this, and here it needs to have changed a bit again. Here it will have changed again. And if I continued on with this, here it will have changed a bit again. And again. And again. So again, it's basically doing a bit of stop motion inside of... but now you have something like this, right? That you have this object beginning to follow him around. After Effects, and it takes a bit more time because you need to begin to adjust some. It's essentially pixels in the picture that it will begin to track. So you need some for quite good lighting to make it work picture perfect. So essentially, to make this work, it takes a bit more time to make it work. So it's not recommended for sketching, but if you made a let's say I think with a much higher fidelity, a prototype video for Kickstarter, then definitely you can do it in After Effects. But again, this actually you can see I did this in a couple of seconds, right? And if we wanted to track it, if we just spend 5 minutes repositioning things in this way, we can make it, and it looks rather fluently like we did it here, right? The trick is that every time that you do this, you can see you get a line here. That is the motion curve. And every time that I begin to then tweak our keyframes, we begin to actually also tweak how this motion curve will look at a given time. So we can always jump between these keyframes and say, no, at this point, I actually want it to be a bit different. It should be like this instead. So we can essentially sketch the animation out, and this is definitely a thing. Try to just tweak along with it, and you can never really break anything. And yeah, now we're anonymized, so now it's not that awkward for him. So, okay. Any more questions? Yeah. Over here, that is essentially when you press, that is with all the effects, when you press the icon next to it. If I just press the scale, but when you press the icon, you get it as the same actually goes for the video clip itself. If I press the motion here, then I get the opportunity to actually move that around also. So it's whenever that you press one of the, whenever they has these kind of icons, you can actually begin to adjust these things. The same goes for the, if you had the arm device here, the corner pins, that's also pressing the icon. Then you get these things you can begin to drag to. I think, was there a question, one more question from one? Nope. Okay. Well, the next couple of hours today are just you guys sketching. At 1 o'clock, I'm going to go to a meeting, but I'm going to be back about 3:30. So if there are any technical questions, I will be back in the afternoon to answer them today. And besides that, I'm of course going to be here the entire day tomorrow. Tomorrow at about just maybe a half hour before lunch, so 11:30 or something, we'll just have a quick talk about the expectations for the critique session Friday. What the format do we expect the presentations to be and stuff like that. But besides that, you have the entire day tomorrow to sketch also. Okay? Cool. Let's get sketching. I'll upload the video here to YouTube and put the link on Moodle too.